Marietta, Georgia. I saw a video going out today, and I don't know if everybody's gotten that video. I'm sure there's quite a bit, but this is really important. I'm just going to tell you, this is a bill that's on the assembly floor, right now in New York State. I watched this woman create this video, and God bless her for sharing it. And I want to share it all with my followers. I'm just telling you that I've been warning you people about forced vaccination, all this school stuff, about how they're going to try to grab your kids, and people telling me, oh, I'm conspiracy, and I'm this, and I'm that. And it just goes along with the HB 6666 bill. It also goes along with the pulling off in Ohio right now, trying to tell you that the CDC or something to that is recommending that your kids be on lockdown in some FEMA camp overnight, that you need to prepare your children to be held and detained from you in the state of Ohio. Somebody then shoots me this here, and I'm watching this today. There is a New York State Assembly bill that they're trying to pass, which is the A99, Assembly Bill A99. I urge you all to go and read it online. They say because I say so. This is not conspiracy. Again, folks, I'm going to remind you right here, I printed this bill out. I printed this bill. When I told people so many weeks ago or a month or more ago about just a hypothesis of what could be, right? I mentioned to everyone about, let's just take this theory. Let's just take the kids go back to school, which they kept putting off. And now the kids have been going back to school, some kids not, especially in my area. All my surrounding counties are in school except for my county. Now they're getting ready to go back to school in November. But what did they come out with a couple of days beforehand, that they stated that in the state of Georgia, in November, they're going to come out with this vaccine. And if needed, thousands, if not millions of vials will be available, right? So back so many weeks ago, or a month or two ago, I came up with this hypothesis. Wouldn't it be something that the kids go back to school in the fall, and Fauci was saying back in April about the second wave in November, and the second this, and the second wave of that, listen, you really got to have your head wherever it might be if you're not recognizing that this whole corona is a bunch of garbage. Now CDC just came out with the other day stating that the original amount of cases aren't true. You better start seeing that and sharing that one. That's on their behalf. And I will also remind everybody, CDC is not a governmental-owned agency. It is privately owned. I'll say it again. It is privately owned. The CDC is privately owned. They own 20 patents on vaccines, and they've made last year over $4.6 billion on those vaccines. So let's get that shared. Let's get that out there and get people to understand. Because when I mention it to people, they like, I've never heard that. I didn't know that. And I thought they were owned by government. No, they're not. No, they're not. So I came up with this hypothesis, a little bit that I heard maybe from someone else, and I kind of whipped it around with 5G, because I said it then too. And again, people told me I'm crazy with my meter, measuring all these, waves coming off and radiation and all that. I said, wouldn't it be something that the kids go back to school, and God forbid somebody, a kid, a student, a teacher, a nurse, or two or more, all of a sudden comes down, they test some student in the school, and they claim somebody's got it, and we got to put a lockdown to the school. People say, oh, that's crazy. Really? They put a lockdown to the school, I said, and I said, they're going to give you a phone call, and they're going to say, someone's come up positive. In order for you to come and get your child, you're going to have to agree to inoculate your child with this so-called new vaccine. And again, I'm going to remind you, there are 9 out there, only 3 that are somewhat been doing testing and whatever on. They're supposedly not even in this country, those 3. Keep in mind, there are no studies on humans, maybe a minimum of 1 that's got 50 people, if that, because I think I heard that somewhere. That does not constitute any kind of real study to go inoculate in the damn world with. That just does not happen, okay? Corona's been around for years, and you gotta understand that. And they, for years, have had a hard time trying to come up with this vaccine. Vaccines, we all know, usually take on average a year and a half to 2.5 years to get approved by the FDA. But now they want to whoop up this vaccine and make it that it's coming here in November without any real testing. Everybody's supposed to take it. And they're telling Jordan on the TV that they're prepared with thousands, if not millions of vials, if needed, to get everybody this vaccine. Well, I'll tell you now, you can keep it. And let's not forget, what I'm talking about hanging on to your kids. If you don't agree, they're going to take your child, I said, unless you agree to vaccinate the kid, and then everybody else in the house has to be inoculated. I says, and that could just be, and I did state then, that's just a hypothesis. And I said, I got called all kinds of names, but a lot of people grabbed onto it and said it's a possibility, right? Here we are, in New York State. Assembly bill on the floor now. Look it up, share it, read it. I'm just going to give you the gist of it on the first page and a quarter. It's got another 166 lines. I read this. It's only 4 pages, folks. I urge you to read it. You need to see it. You need to fight it. You need not to allow it to come to your area. This is bogus. They're about to take your children. Lump sums. When they see lump sums, so I'm going to break it down a little bit for you, okay? So the beginning of this is the New York State Assembly, introduced, all right, and it says, read once and reference Committee on Health, an act to amend the public health law in relation to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases who are potentially dangerous to the public health. Potentially? Well, don't you have their proper test to say yes or no, right? Which we all know where those tests are going these days. Not good. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, the public health law is amended by adding a new section, 2120-A, to read as follows. Okay? You can't make this up, and you better go look at it, and you better print it, because you're going to need to reread it, okay? Removal, it says the public health law is amended. I read that. So, 2120A, removal and detention of cases. Here, right? It sounds like they're talking about the second lockdown here. Removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be danger to public health. It's either you are or you may. So they're thinking, maybe, I don't know, suspicious. They're going to look to detain you. Or endanger the public health. Other orders. The provisions of the section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency due to an epidemic or communicable disease upon how he fits, which then may be suspicious of or a possibility of, right? Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence that the health of others is or may be endangered by a case, contact or carrier or suspected case. A suspected, they don't even have to know for sure. A suspected case, maybe, I don't know. They're going to have the right to detain you and take you or your child. Remember, this is either single or group setting. Right? I said this. This is also about what I said about 5G. It's not about the virus, about keeping you 6 feet apart because of viral. Even Dr. Buttar turned around and said, there is only 3 maybe in the world that can jump further than 3 feet and ain't even in this country. Okay? So the whole 6 feet apart, I told you then as well, is because their systems can't detect if you're all together, whether there's 1 of you or 21 of you. This is what they want for facial recognition, tracing, and tracking, which I will also back up to the vaccine when I spoke to you about Moderna, right? That's in Germany, and that's a whole other thing. So suspect case, contact or carrier of a contagious disease that is in pose or imminent significant threat to the public health, resulting in severe mobility or high mortality. The governor or his or her delegee, including but not limited to the commissioner or the heads of local health departments, may order the removal or detention of such a person or of a group of such persons by issuing a single order, identifying such persons either by name or by reasonable suspect description of individuals or group being detained. Are you not hearing this? Being detained, such person or group of persons shall be detained in medical facility or other appropriate facility or premises assigned by the governor or his or her delegee and complying with subdivision 5 of this section. I read earlier today in Ohio how they were talking about FEMA camp setup and prepare you parents to have your children stay overnight under their care through FEMA. Are you freaking kidding me? How much more do you need to show what they're trying to do here? This is not good. They don't need facts. All they need is suspicion, and they grab your kids in a lockdown. They take them out, and you're not going to get them back. God only knows what they'll do with these kids while they have them. You think I was out of my mind then? Am I so out of my mind now? Am I so out of my mind? Was I that far off? I'm not. So now, I will back it up a little bit. Well, before I do that and get into the school thing in 5G, I will finish reading this last paragraph. A person or group removed or detained by order of the governor or his or her delegee pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section shall be detained for such period in such manner as the department may direct in accordance with this section. I'm telling you, I read further. I read this whole thing. You will see it will go beyond, they talk in here, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 90 days. 90 days as they feel fit. And as anybody knows the court system, man oh man, so when these attorneys fight for rights and this and that, they can go back and forth and argue, and it can go into weeks, calendar dates. They try to find who's got a calendar date, who's got a court case, who's doing a criminal case, who's doing a death case or murder case or whatever, and these cases keep getting put off, and your kids are going to get stuck in there. This is as to they fit, as to they want it. Are you not seeing and hearing this? I'll finish up with this. Notwithstanding any inconsistent provision of this section, a confirmed case or a carrier who is detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section shall not continue to be detained after the department determines that such person is no longer contagious. That is up to them to decide. You're not going to have a choice. You will, as you read on here, you will have a legal right to ask for legal counsel. You will have a right to ask to be, to be taken out of there. Again, they're going to keep putting it off till they get to their agenda what they want. Right? Part B of this, a suspected case or suspected carrier who is detained pursuant to the subdivision 2 of this section shall not continue to be detained after the department determines with the exercise of due diligence that such person is not infected with or has not been exposed to such a disease or is infected with or exposed to such a disease no longer is or will become contagious. They can keep you up to their determination. And they can keep, as you will, I want you to read further on this order. Further reading on this order will tell you that you're entitled to this and that, but it's up to, again, a judge's discretion, whether either to let you out, or is there enough sufficient evidence or proper testing? We already know proper testing doesn't exist. Come on. Whether it's coming from China, whether it's coming from Russia, or whether the test is a little evasive. If you ask me, they stick it up your nose, or there's saliva, or other ways. President Trump is talking about easier ways of testing, but we know some of that testing has already been infected. Because we also know some of these doctors that have come forward that put in, a John Doe's name to the test without testing anybody, and it comes back positive. What about that, people? Please don't ignore that. Don't forget that. That is real. That is reality. That's what these medical doctors are doing, and now they're being threatened. There's a medical doctor, Dr. Scott, I forget his last name. He's another guy, he's a medical doctor. I think he owns a medical clinic in Minnesota, I think it is. And they're threatening his license now. And he's got to fight the board because he's doing what I'm doing. And he's just talking about, listen, I'm not making this up. It's not conspiracy. This is what they're saying. And they're looking to take away his license. This is what guys like me, chiropractors, naturopaths, homeopaths, all the alternative people have been 50, 60, 70 years fighting about. And because the medical profession has never felt it because it hasn't touched their pocketbook, or it hasn't affected their clinics, or it hasn't affected their families or their patients, because I won't say all MDs are out there for that. They're not. They're not. That would be impossible. Okay? But for those that barked against us and call us witch doctors and witch hunters and not real doctors, and you go on and on and on with all the names. Now you're out there screaming because it affects your pocketbook. Well, I'm glad now you finally got to see it. Now I'm glad you get to see what we've been fighting for many years. All we ever asked for is real, true, double-blind, saline placebo testing. That's all we've ever asked for. And we've been called all kinds of names why all of you make all this money and the kickbacks that you get. You pediatricians out there, the kickbacks that you get on the first 2 year of schedule for all the vaccines you give these children. That I will remind all of you again, on the first 135, there is no double-blind placebo testing anywhere on any of them. Not one. Not one that shows those vaccines are safe to children around the world. And we won't even get started with Gardasil. The most dangerous than all vaccines combined, and the most expensive. And that vaccine's not mandatory. You people better start thinking twice about giving that to your child. It does not cure HPV. I'll tell you what helps beat it. When most people don't even know they got it. More pap smears for women, safe sex, more cleanliness, more education, and more parents talking to their children about all the above.